One, and we're now live. Thank you for joining me today, bro.
My pleasure.
First question to fire it off is for the new people listening, tell them a little bit about your background and your journey to where you are now.
Yeah, I am Joseph Holmes. I go by UglymanJoe. I'm a professional mixed martial artist. I started back in 2014 and I went pro about 2020. I did fight in the UFC for about 2 years. Hopefully, I get back to the UFC after this fight I have coming up.
How comes? What happened there? Like, what's the plan? 'Cause obviously, you said you was in the UFC. Now you're not. What's the gateway there? Like, was there a bit of background stuff that went on, or was it just a choice?
Yeah. When I went to the UFC, I was training at Glory MMA in Kansas City, Missouri. That was with James Krause as my head coach. He kind of went through some federal issues dealing with like the gambling and stuff like that at the time. I don't know if the listeners know much about that story, but that kind of really affected me because, through that, I lost my head coach. So I kind of felt a little in disarray, I guess, after that occurred. And so I was still on contract with the UFC, and um, things were just really difficult for me. And so I wasn't really winning the fights as much anymore after that happened. And so my last fight was about 2 years ago, and I suffered a upper back injury that had me out for 2 years. And so this will be my first fight back since. And yeah, that's kind of like briefly kind of what happened, and just fighting the best guys in the world. And so, I just it wasn't my time yet. So I try to take everything like a message or a sign, right? Like if it doesn't happen now, that doesn't mean it can't happen later. A lot of times it just means it's not your time. And so
So you spoke about obviously your upcoming fight. What's the plans and preparations for you currently moving into that? Because I think it's in July, if I'm correct.
correct. Yeah, it's July 18th here in Dallas. It's at a big stadium called the Comerica Center. And it's against Greg Hardy for the heavyweight title for Peak Fighting Championships. Super exciting, very scary, very gets me fired up whenever I think about it. Um, yeah. So that'll be my first fight back in after 2 years, and so I'm currently still looking for a head coach. I'm working with a coach at a gym called the War Room in Fort Worth, Texas, but still haven't officialized head coach position because I currently own my gym I've trained at my entire career, SFS MMA in Mesquite, Texas. I recently bought it back in October, and so I'm the head coach now. So I still need to kind of lock in someone for me.
Mhm. And what's that like for you? Obviously, coaching other people. Like, what's your style like? Has there been influences from coaches you have had where you've learnt lessons that have shaped you and how you approach coaching? Like, do you do things differently due to like previous coaches for yourself, or do you take lessons from them in how you coach the people that you're dealing with now?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Yeah, I absolutely take, because I've trained with a lot of the best coaches in the world, especially throughout my pro stint, like the first half of being a professional fighter. I traveled a lot and trained with a lot of awesome coaches. And so, yeah, I definitely bring those techniques to my program. I'm also a black belt under Moeller. And so he's one of the best jujitsu professors around. And I use a lot of his format for our Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Um, and yeah, I definitely bring all of the lessons I've learned. And then I also came up at a different time in MMA where, it was really grimy every day. It was real, you're getting beat up every day, and like nowadays, guys are a little bit softer, no offense, but guys, they definitely want the glory without the work a lot of times, I've noticed. And so I definitely try to bring a rugged, you know, just like a really down dirty type of training to my gym for sure. And I want the guys, especially the ones who talk about wanting to compete one day, I definitely try to, put them in the fire and see if they can find their way out.
Yeah, I was literally going to touch on that. Is like, how do you determine with like your students who's going to get to that level and who's not? Like, are there things that you see and notice where you go, okay, this person might be ready for doing this, maybe not pushing too hard, but that they've got that ability or that mentality to propel forward?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely try to use my discretion. Again, this is still very fresh too. I just purchased the gym in October, and so there were already some guys who had been training with the previous head coach, who felt like they were ready, and I didn't want to take that away from them just because I'm the new head coach. But I definitely, try to put a keen eye on each individual, try to give them homework, such as, hey, sign up for this jujitsu tournament. Hey, there's a Muay Thai competition around the corner you should sign up for, things like that, just to, be able to see them under that pressure. Cause I don't want to see any of my guys lose. That's the most devastating thing, to not win a fight after you feel like you've put in all this work. It's especially in front of like your loved ones and the people you care about who are there watching. And so there's definitely a fine line between not letting them compete and take, kind of in their eyes ruining their dream, and letting them compete even though they're not ready.
Mhm.
And there's a very fine line there. But I'm hoping now moving forward that I'm kind of more settled in. And I have a partner too. He's a phenomenal man, Vanna Eck. He's helped me and backed me up through every step of the way with this new journey owning the gym. But he makes it a little easier for me to be able to just keep my eye on those guys and do the extra stuff with those guys. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely hoping now moving forward, most of my guys realize like you need to at least be a blue belt before you fight, because all of the guys that you're going to fight against are probably ex wrestlers or ex sambo guys, or some of those guys coming over from like Russia and Kazakhstan, and those guys who kind of been wrestling their entire lives,
Yeah.
even outside of pursuing MMA. And so, I definitely want to kind of lock it down on that. Just like stand my ground. Like, hey, man, if you're not a blue belt or if you don't have grappling experience, man, honestly, there's no reason for you to get in there and fight. You're just going to get choked.
Mm. How do like, for example, I'll use yourself as the key example here. Like, how did you deal with that pressure when performing? Because obviously, like for me, I think about competing and stuff like that. I've competed like
Oh,
a
do you
couple of
train?
I've
I
competed a
didn't mean to
couple of
cut you
times
off.
into no, that's right. I've competed a couple of times in jiu-jitsu. And
Cool.
the first time I was like calm, like, because I didn't really care, it's just fun. And then the second time I was like, oh man, I've got all this adrenaline in me, like I know my arms are going to burn out quick because I'm so like amped up. And it's like I didn't know maybe how to deal with that pressure. I've got loads of people watching as well. I had friends come and watch. So how do you, like, what techniques do you use that can help reduce that?
So one in particular that comes to mind is called box breathing. I'm the kind of guy, like when I work out, I don't listen to music. If it's really hard workout or like a long run and I'm like maybe like malnourished or for cutting weight or whatever, I would listen to a podcast, but usually I'm just like in my brain and I'm just focusing on breathing. And so box breathing, if you don't know, is 4 seconds inhale, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds exhale, 4 seconds hold. I've heard a few people say 5 seconds, but hey, I've always done four. It's always worked for me. And that one seems to really help just because it really takes your mind off of what you're doing. And what you don't want before competition is to have those moments where you are thinking about what's about to happen, and it like gets your heart racing and it almost puts your body in that feeling like you're actually in the fight now. And so what that does from my experience is it kills my energy. And so, like, I've had all those moments where I wasn't box breathing and I'm thinking about the fight. My heart starts racing and then it completely throws me off of my focus. And then I get in the fight and I'm just like stale and not moving and, can't wake up quick enough. And so that's really helped me deal with that pressure because it is a lot of pressure, especially like what you just said. Like, you have all those people there watching, and you actually care now. You want to win. And it stops being fun really quickly, especially when you find out like you have some potential. It's like, oh, like I can win. You see, maybe you see a roster. It's like two other guys. Like, oh man, I've beaten both of these guys before. I could win. Now the pressure's on. Like, all I got to do is show up and be my best self right now. Like, I don't get a second chance. If I show up right now, I'll win. So that adds a lot of pressure. That it's box breathing has helped me um, not focus on the pressure until it's time to, which is when we shake hands and we're about to fight.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the power of breathing is so important, and that's one thing I've been trying to work on because I just forget. And it's like it's weird because we do it without thinking, anyways. But because we do it without thinking, I forget to
Yeah,
implement a
or
technique.
we just do it wrong.
Yeah,
Maybe we're breathing out of our mouth, or maybe we start like hyperventilating and losing track of our breathing. Exactly. And another thing, I even try to just like breathe out of my nose, because that calms you down too, just to kind of just, really just bring everything back, slow everything down. And yeah, 100%.
so, what's been like your biggest motivator to get you to where you are now? Like, where does that inner drive come from to achieve and be successful? Because it's something when I've spoke to a lot of people, they give me answers, but they also kind of don't know. And I'm trying to, like, from my own selfishness, trying to work out from people, is it like something you're just born with, or, and some people aren't, to go and achieve things, or is it something that's happened in life? Do you know what I mean? Like, for you
Yeah.
personally, like what's been the driving factor?
So, I mean, I guess for me, I had a really rough childhood. I just say rough, just like, we weren't the most financially stable. My mom always had multiple jobs, blah, blah, blah. And so, very early on when I started training, I started working with the children. And I realized almost immediately, like, the children are everything. Not only are they the future, that's very, just cliche, I guess, but they're also like sponges. They're like, if you put the right example in front of them, that's the way they're going to live their life. And so, immediately when I discovered my interest in working with children, I decided, like, literally decided to myself verbally, I want to train champions. I want to raise other people that want to, be involved in combat sports to be their best version and win belts and, just make themselves and their families proud. And so, in order to do that, I decided also that I have to become my best self and I have to be a champion and I have to be those things too in order to teach them how to do that. And so that's always been what's driving me. And then when I had my first son about 9 years ago, that was my initial drive, like, oh man, I got a son now, I got to go and become something and be something, something he can be proud of. And so now having my second son, who turns 1 next month, he was really my courage recently to, like, hey, it's been long enough. I think it's time. I think it's time to find a good opportunity for myself and get back out there. And my wife has always supported me 100%. And when I got this offer, I talked with her, and she's like, yeah, it is time. You're at the gym every day anyway, and you still haven't got that belt you want. And so, hey, get out there and do it. And so that my children, as well as all the children of the world, like, who are in my area who could possibly come and train with me, that is my motivation to go and be my best version.
And how do you balance? So obviously, like, for example, with the fight coming up, how do you balance like family teaching, training yourself to be ready and prepared? Do you kind of switch things off? Do you step back from things a little bit? Like, is that difficult? What's kind of your process when getting ready?
I wish I could have a firm answer as to how, man. I really, really do. But that's probably my biggest challenge. To just, feel like I'm giving my family enough of my time, but also to feel like, I'm doing enough to win, and so I remember right when I did accept the fight, I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be a little absent and I'm sorry. I have to be a little selfish right now. And, you know, just and we've talked about it a couple of times since, but just like, I have to. And hopefully that conversation can provide some understanding to, what, he's right. He does need to be selfish and I need to just be here for him and, take a little bit more of the home workload and let him just do what he needs to do. But as far as the process, man, that's the biggest challenge, dude. I'm always trying to, when I am home, trying to, hey, let's go get some oysters, or let's go try that Japanese spot you were talking about, and just do stuff like that, like to let her know I do still, you know, care and she is still a priority, but man, it's hard, bro. It's hard.
It's this. I think a friend of mine once said to me, like, you can't have everything. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you can't do it all, but you can reduce and then go 100% here, and then reduce there and go 100% there. But you just can't have like 100% into everything because it just doesn't work. Like, you end up kind of sacrificing a part of yourself trying to maintain all of that. I think it's quite a difficult thing.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. But I always say anything worth having is not easy to get. That's something I've always said. And so that as well kind of gives me a little more fuel under my fire. Like, okay, this is pretty tough. Okay, then you're headed in the right direction. Just one step at a time. Keep on pushing.
And what's one skill like you try to train each of your athletes as well? Like, all of them, say like there's a few fundamentals that maybe you're trying to instill in them.
As far as competitors, I would say aggression is one of the hardest things to teach, but it's also one of the main things you need for combat sports is aggression, because a lot of people mistake aggression for like being mean or I don't want to hurt them, you know what I mean, things like that. But like somebody who's going to compete in a combat sport understands, or they should, that hey, we signed a contract. It's about last man standing, and in reality it's about who can murder who. And so to do that with your bare hands, you have to be a little aggressive. And so I think that, or not a little aggressive, you have to be aggressive. And so that's really the main thing I try to focus on, is kind of teaching, okay, what's aggressive, what's a fair amount of aggressive, or what's too aggressive for the gym mats, right? In comparison to the competition mats. And once you hone in on that, I think that's a skill. I think that'd be a skill, right? Being
Yeah.
aggressive. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had when I went and competed in jiu-jitsu, I spoke to a friend of mine and I was talking, you go through like scenarios and stuff, and I was just like, but what if I get him in like a position where I can like break his arm and he
Break
doesn't
it.
tap? Yeah, and he literally just said, well, then you break it. Like, you're there to compete, like, and just think of it this way, like, that person is probably going to break your arm if it's the other way
100%.
around. So it's like, you either tap or I'm going to break it. And as soon as my friend said that to me, I was like, I suppose I'm going to have to now. And then it's just like, this is what I need to do to, like, in a competition setting, if I want to win, I need to have that aggression. You can't be all nice and just like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, here we go. Do you know what I mean? It needs to be, I'm ready to go. Whatever happens is going to happen, but I'm going to go the full 100%. I can't be dipping my toe in and going, oh, well, I got that person there. The same as like when you knock someone out, right? Like, you punch someone, they go to the floor, they're a little bit like still with it. You've got to go on top and like pounce on them. You can't just hit them to the floor and then just be like see them still all over the place.
Yeah,
You know, that's the referee's job or whoever's there's job to call it and say no, you don't attack this person anymore.
100%. And not having that skill creates hesitation, and hesitation creates unfair matches. And even the person who got knocked out, who got hammer fisted a few times in the face, I think they would appreciate more that it was a, that the ref had to pull you off, opposed to you just knocking them down and standing there, because then they could have thought like, well, I could have recovered. And so it just takes away that confusion, and just it solidifies someone's victory, and it's that aggression. And it sucks that people have a want to compete, but they struggle with that aspect. But honestly, I think that is the main aspect that I really try and focus on for competitors.
And what's sort of your plan with getting back into the UFC, and how do you feel about the UFC currently with like the Paramount deal and the direction it's moving? I know there's a lot of talk about fighter pay, and just kind of all of the organization as a whole. I'm not being horrible from an English guy's perspective. Dana White doesn't seem that passionate about the UFC as much anymore since moving into boxing. That's just my opinion. But yeah, just like where do you sit with all of that going on?
For starters, I absolutely love the UFC. I feel like they've always taken care of me and always done right by me. As far as pay, I have zero complaints. I still receive checks today from my fights I had 2 years ago. Um, I think that I'm happy with the current state of the UFC, because I think it's given jobs to more people. I think the consistency has just offered more opportunities for people to work. Maybe people who do rely on fighting to pay their bills, because I was in that position at one point, and it's a really scary position to be in. Like, you literally have to be in shape and fight shape to pay your bills. That's and so I think that the new Paramount deal has really offered that type of stability for people's lives. Um, and as far as him kind of like transitioning his focus into boxing more, I think maybe he's just gotten the UFC in a place where it could run itself now. He had to put a lot of years into getting it to this place, I'm sure. And so now that the UFC is kind of, it has a set schedule for probably a lot longer in advance. Now he's like, okay, now I can transition some of my focus over here to get this. Because what is he doing? The Netflix things? Or is he with the.
Yeah, I think it's like the Zuffa stuff. But I think they're
Okay.
on Netflix. I can't remember where I watched the last one. Pretty sure it's on
Okay.
Netflix.
Okay. Yeah. But just to see, like, where the UFC is now, it makes me a little excited to see, where he's going to get his other situations too. Because now we do get very consistent fights out of the UFC, and that's something I think that all of the UFC fans should be happy about. But I do realize now I'm watching the fights a little bit less.
Yeah, because there's so many on, I suppose.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like Dana's energy is a little bit flat. That's just fine. He's focusing on something else, and the UFC is kind of running itself. I don't mind the calendar being so busy because it gives everyone an opportunity to compete, fight, get paid, and also people will like criticize a card and say it's not very good, and then suddenly after that card it was like one of the best cards because it was just two guys that just want to make a name for themselves throwing down two girls, for example, just absolutely going to war. And you're like, you can't predict the sport by names, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh well, these two guys are ranked 12 and 15, because they can just have some of the best scraps and everyone's just like, oh my god. I don't know.
yeah. No, I totally agree. Because even now, like, I have friends like, "Oh, did you watch that card? Did you watch that card?" First thing I'll ask them was like, "Oh, what were the names on the card?
Yeah.
Like, who were the big names?" And that might be a little unfair, but that's just the reality of things.
True. I mean, superstars sell, don't they? At the end of the day, what do you think about the White House card coming up?
I liked that Dana, the president requested Derek Lewis. I thought that was super duper fun, and that he just like added that in last minute. Isn't it Gaethje and someone else?
Yeah, Ilya Taporia, yeah, at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a super fun fight. Very scary fight for both guys. Um, but that's super fun. That's a really big name, and that's guaranteed fireworks. Like without a doubt, a fun, entertaining fight. But other than that, I don't really know many of the fights on the card. But they have to be good.
Think oh man, who's the I don't know. I literally had the card in my
Did he?
head. I know you've got I think you've got have you got Sean O'Malley on the card? Do you know, I'm gonna have to look because it's gonna bug me. And as soon as I say it, like we'll both go, oh yeah, of course. UFC White House card, let's have a look. Freedom 250. The only thing I was concerned about Poirier and Gaethje is like, obviously Gaethje's American, Poirier's not. It's like if Poirier knocks him out, it's like yes, you're meant to be celebrating like America, freedom, 250 years, and your American guys like face down on the canvas. It's not great.
Well, isn't it an exclusive thing anyway? Like it's kind of just like for like the people like I heard they have a screen in the yard
Mm-hmm.
for people outside to watch, but also like the people actually at the live event will just be just kind of like celebrities and presidents,
Yeah, I think so.
friends and family. And so, you're not going to have much of an outrage until you try to leave the White House, I guess.
How did we not know this card, right? So you got Ilya Justin, Alex Pereira, Cyril Gahn, Sean O'Malley, Zabib, Rufi versus Michael Chandler, Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dorcas, Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia, and then obviously you got Derek Lewis on there as well. Those are some big names.
Diego should have been. Yeah, it's actually a bunch of big names. Yeah, I think Diego should have been a little later, get a little bit more respect because that kid's he's a machine, man. But definitely a fun main card, and the UFC is coughing up some money for this event.
Yeah, no. So I think that Dana said like 60 million or something. It's going to like cost them to give me some of that money, you know.
Man, give us some of that for real.
Oh, my brain's gone. When did you know this was your journey? Like, when did you sort of realize, like, I'm going to be a competitor. I'm going to make it to the UFC. Then you had the adverse, like the setback, and now you're fighting again. But what clicked for you where you thought this is the road and the path I'm going to go on?
It was like 2 months into training when I did my first jiu-jitsu tournament. Obviously a white belt. And I had like a gigantic bracket. It was for a tournament that I think is extinct now, but they were called Europa.
Mhm.
And I probably had like just so many fights, probably in gi, probably like 9 fights or something, or opponents, 9 other opponents, and then in no gi somewhere around there as well. And so I remember just fighting, just fight after fight, losing a good amount of them, and I ended up walking away with a bronze medal. And I remember being so happy about not winning. It was the first time I had ever really been not okay with it because obviously I wanted the gold, but just like really satisfied with my performance, being able to at least pull off a third place medal. Um, and I thought to myself that same day, like, oh, this is for me, because this was just 2 months in. Had I been 6 months in, like probably most of the guys I competed against, I would have won for 100%. And so that showed me my potential, and that showed me like I can listen to my coach, I can stick to the game plan, and literally from there I called my entire career. Like people tell me all the time on I've even been specific on like past interviews of things that I could remember more clearly than of when somebody was like, dude, you told me you were gonna do this, you said you were gonna get to the UFC. I remember when I first went pro, my first 2 fights were with Bellator, And I after Bellator wanted me to have a bigger contract and like multiple fight contract, and I told him I was like, no, I prefer just to have like a one fight deal because I'm going to get to the UFC, and I don't want this to hold me back or anything. So I feel like I knew right away, and yeah, that was kind of the opening for me that first jiu-jitsu tournament.
I feel like that was part of it was like your manifestation. Do you know what I mean? To like visualizing,
Mhm.
but also the roadmap there. Because I always say to people like manifestation is good because you're visualizing yourself there, but you also need that action as well. Like you can't think your way, in my opinion, to success. There has to be some form of action and blueprint steps there.
Yeah, and just like the manifestation is more, or just the power of your tongue. I kind of call it, but that's kind of more the push to do the work. Because especially when you get really into something, you start watching other people do it, and you start watching, fights and videos and stuff, and so you see what they're doing to get to where I want to be, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna get there, so that means I gotta do that work they're doing, and I gotta work as hard as I possibly can.
What's one of your hardest sort of lessons that you've had to learn and then overcome during your career so far?
Mm,
Always a difficult question.
probably probably just that, you're not the center of the universe, and just like when you're getting ready for that fight, or when you're backstage and your fight's going to get called up anytime now, you might feel so much pressure, and just like everything just like caving your chest in, but it's just like, dude, there was like 20 other people that fought before you, and there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people that are going to fight after you. You're not the center of the universe. Just get in there and do your best, and that even kind of takes a little of the pressure off, for me at least, just to kind of just you know not feel so self-centered. You're doing this for all your loved ones, you're doing it for your gym, you're doing it for your family. You're going to be all right.
Do you find doing a lot of competitions beforehand, providing obviously you're not going to injure yourself, but like before competing at sort of the top level, do you find that helps take pressure off as well? Because a guy, Rani, I spoke to in a previous episode, he was saying like before his sort of UFC fights, he would basically go to like closed jiu-jitsu events and kind of just get used to like that feeling of all the adrenaline, because we get it whether we're competing in front of 100 people or 20,000 people, like it's the same response. So he was like, he would kind of do that just before competition, before like a big sort of performance and competition, to, I suppose, program himself a little bit to get more comfortable with that feeling.
Oh, 100%. It's a very uh pressureful. I think I made that word up, but it's definitely, fighting
Works.
is definitely full of pressure. And so anything you can do to get yourself in similar situations like fighting, like having to listen to your coach, or creating a game plan for course of success that you need to stick to, or competing in front of people that you care about or train with. um, all of those things are going to be obstacles in the actual fight. And so doing that to prepare for the fight, I don't see any downfall to that at all.
How do you see your fight going with Greg Hardy? Because obviously we're talking about manifestation and the power of the tongue.
Yeah,
Put it out there. Let's go.
I think I have all the tools to win. I think 8 out of 10 times I win this fight. And I think that either I can get him slipping up pretty early, just making him move his feet a lot. Hopefully, can get him to slip, or get him against the cage, or something where I can get to his neck. I think that I could get him out of there pretty early. Um, but also, I think that I win with the 5 round fight. Once he gets a little tired, slows down a bit, and just kind of really start piecing him up and getting my own stuff going. I think I win that fight. So I don't think I win by a decision because I've never won by a decision. But I definitely think that in the course of the match, that towards the end of the fight, I could actually start catching him because he's kind of heavy defense, heavy counter, um, and I'm kind of like gung ho kind of. I'm just like just go go go, and so I definitely think I can get him tired, put him away, or catch him slipping, catch him in a choke early.
Nice. I'll make sure I revisit that after the fight. I'll be
Yeah,
like, this
absolutely.
man predicted it. It was all going down. He knew what was happening. The game plan was there.
Yeah, that's the plan, man. But the guy is a super duper game opponent. He is a scary fight that gets me fired up, and I have nothing but respect for him. He's somebody that I've watched over the years, and I'm for whatever it's worth, I'm proud of him. I know he's had a lot to overcome as well to get to where he is, and so super exciting fight, super scary fight, and I look forward to it.
And that's my questions fired off. Have you got anything you want to add? Or I mean, we were going 36 minutes. I didn't even realize. It's just flown
I
by.
didn't realize either.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. But yeah, is there anything you wanna add at all and promote and everything like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for starters, I'm really grateful for you. I love doing interviews, and I love when I at least get some type of recognition for somebody to want to do an interview with me. I feel like I have a lot to share, and so for that, I appreciate you. I am UglymanJoe on all social media outlets. I own a gym in Dallas, Texas, a small suburb called Mesquite, Texas, called SFS MMA, and we're growing rapidly. So if you're in the area, please come by. We'd love to see you. And I got my fight for the heavyweight title for Peak Fighting PFC, July 18th in Dallas.
And thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate that. I will tag all the links in the description below for anyone who wants to come and follow you, and anyone that even maybe may want to reach out and speak to you as well. And hopefully we can run this back sort of after your fight. That'd be quite cool.
Absolutely. I would love to, man.
Yeah. All right, brother. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate that. I'll chat
Thank
to
you.
you for 2 minutes after the stream. I'm just gonna stop recording now. So yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for coming on.
my pleasure, bro.